And I said, well, if you provide black drapes and some steam and smoke, I think I can do the rest with light. I quickly had to learn how to photograph Darth Vader. We're going to build a foreground, a ramp, but there won't be a background. Can you help me?
Only your hatred can destroy me. I am your father.
George Lucas, he'd made one film prior to that, THX. I learned some years later that he'd seen Privilege, the film I shot, whilst he was at film school. That's why he called me for the first Star Wars film. And I went happily to the meeting at 20th Century Fox in London. One of the first things I said was, I've got no experience at all in visual effects. I think the man you want is Jeff Unsworth, who had shot 2001, which was the big science fiction film at that time. He said, yes, you're quite right. Jeff Unsworth would have been a good choice, but he's not available. I don't remember the substance of the rest of the meeting, but the producers of Star Wars prevailed upon him to take somebody with more experience than I had. He was extremely good, but I know for a fact that they didn't get on together. George Lucas and he didn't understand each other, and the DOP was heard saying he's working with a bunch of amateurs and the film would never be a success. So George Lucas didn't want to work with him again, and he suggested to Irvin Kershner, who was going to be the director of The Empire Strikes Back, that he might interview me and see how he felt about me and my work. We got on pretty well, and he looked at my work and he decided to ask me to shoot the film, even though I said to him, I still got no experience in visual effects. And the answer was, it doesn't really matter. George Lucas said, I'll fly you out to the ranch and you can talk about it with the people who are going to be in charge of visual effects, which is what happened. And sat at a table with many people, looking at a few storyboards for the action scenes for the film that was coming up. And I understood that nobody really knew quite how they were going to handle these scenes. Films involving visual effects always want to broach new territory and do things which have never been done before. And I had the feeling that since they didn't quite know what they were going to do, I certainly didn't know what I was going to do, and I would learn from them. And it's just that various technical expressions that were current then, like front projection, rear projection, blue screen, and matte painting, they all filled me with fear because I didn't really know what they were. In approaching them in a work situation, I found them usable and user-friendly and not to be afraid of at all. I think there were elements which were sometimes reduced scale. The snow walkers were not filmed by the first unit. They were filmed in San Francisco. I think they're frame-by-frame animation, so they took a long time to shoot. 2 weeks after we started production in London, George Lucas flew back to San Francisco and spent the rest of the production time there in San Francisco doing just that, shooting the snow walkers and other scenes which required models. It was totally delightful. He was a lovely man with a good sense of humour and a very quick mind, sometimes too quick. He'd sometimes come up with too many ideas and fall over them, in a sense. But he was delightful to work with. He had a sense of fun and adventure. We worked on a studio that was built for us. It was very large. It wasn't a sound stage, wasn't insulated for sound, but it was very big. And they built the swamp in there. I used a lot of light because I wanted a general soft diffused light from above, to which I added on the ground. But at that time I was using 100 ASA film. When you compare it to the standard digital camera of 800 to 1200 ASA, that's very slow. So I used lots of arc lights and other big lamps and had fun. Well, every day felt like going to nursery school and playing with big toys on that film. I had a huge silk running the whole length of the studio, I think, underneath them. At that stage of the film, the production designer called me aside and said, "I've run out of money for the construction budget. We've devoured it all with the sets we've built. So I won't be able to give you much of a set. I'm going to build a foreground, a ramp, but there won't be a background. Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, if you provide black drapes and some steam and smoke, I think I can do the rest with light and with colour," and I chose the colours.
Do or do not. There is no try.
When I was shooting the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I came across a material which was used for front projection screens. I could compare it to road signs. If you're sitting in your car and your headlights hit a road sign, they look very bright. I used this material on one of the scenes in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The RKO symbol is a radio mast with flashing lightning. How to make them light up in camera was the challenge in my mind. I've got hold of this material, I think it's called 3M, and I had them cut out the lightning flashes on the radio mast with this material, and I put a very weak light source close to the lens of the camera. By doing that, the camera could see the flashing lightning on the radio mast. Nobody else could see it because it's so directional. I decided to use that on the lightsabers. So I put a very small and weak light source that didn't affect the light on the actors next to, very, very close to the lens of the camera, and shone it at the scene, and that magically lit up the swords.
Now, release your anger.
To start with, on my first day filming him, he was problematical because he was black and shiny. Any lamp we put up would be seen in reflection. I quickly had to learn how to photograph Darth Vader with large sheets of white, and the lamps bounced off them in strategic places anyway, so that we'd be able to read his costume and the shape of his helmet and so on.